It feels more and more like just another place to park and maybe grow your money. Is that sad to you at all, that we've lost all this stuff about fixing the world or making things better?
Wasn't it Spinal Tap when they're going through a department store and they hear one of their songs as Muzak, right? And they
Bitcoin, is it money or is it a joke? Today we're talking about the future of cryptocurrency with Coindesk's Andy Baehr. Andy, thanks for joining us. So when's Bitcoin going to hit $1 million?
I mean, let's check right now.
Yeah,
Maybe
right.
it has hit $1
Pull my
million.
phone
I think in a way to get people excited, people think about numbers like this as possibilities. Certainly if you look at the volatility of Bitcoin, it would be an extremely unlikely event for Bitcoin to hit $1 million anytime soon. But 15 years in, we're kind of at an interesting point where the network effect has established itself. And now we have a bunch of mass adoption things happening. So we have a kind of blessing from the regulators in the United States and regulators in other countries. So certainly you're going to have more users coming in wanting to own and hold Bitcoin for long periods of time. So there's certainly a demand curve there, which is interesting. Is it parabolic that we get to $1 million? I don't know, but I think it's going to be a really interesting ride.
So what does the future look like for Bitcoin?
For the foreseeable future, Bitcoin is so established, its network is so strong, it's 15 years old, it's globally understood very well. It will probably remain the biggest major for quite a while. The future has three components. We've just got through this really historic event of having Bitcoin ETFs be listed on exchanges, which allows the user universe of Bitcoin users to expand a lot, right? Not only does this mean that there can be more education from traditional asset managers to address a much wider audience, but it also makes it a lot easier for people to integrate Bitcoin into their kind of normal financial planning, right? They can allocate it with their other assets and other asset classes, and it's a little bit easier for them to think about integrating that into how they think about their financial future. It was a big event. We like to kind of call it the season finale to all of 2022 and 2023. So then the question is, what's happening in the short, medium, and long term? In the short term, people are going to be eyeing how much money are coming into these ETFs. Are they successful? Are the distribution armies around these big ETF companies actually able to persuade advisors and individuals and institutions to add 2, 3, 4, 5% Bitcoin into their portfolios? In the medium term, we have this event called the halving, which we expect to happen in late April. This is when the reward to miners who provide security to the network, their reward actually gets cut in half. And this happens every once in a while, every couple of years. That's baked into the Bitcoin code from when it started 15 years ago. And that means that a limited supply of Bitcoin will be sort of added to the giant pool. This gives heart to people who like Bitcoin because they get a sense that with limited supply, you kind of have this asset that becomes more and more rare. And this is great. Historically, when the halving happens, even though the miners are getting rewarded less, the price of Bitcoin tends to rise. In the longer term, we think adoption will continue to expand. And remember, Bitcoin is a global asset. More and more people will be adding it to portfolios. And then we have to think about how it starts to react to macroeconomic signals. Is it an inflation hedge? Well, we think it actually maps pretty well to people's inflation expectations in the future and central bank activity in the future. It did really well that way in 2022 and 2023, mapped pretty perfectly. And so for something that has those factors, those macroeconomic factors that can diversify equities, diversify other asset classes, we think people will come to appreciate it. It will find its way into more long-term portfolios.
So we just had the opening up of ETFs in the cryptocurrency market, which in one way legitimizes it, but in another, I think a lot of people view the entire conversation we're having as a joke, right? Because cryptocurrency is also, in the minds of the public, synonymous with fraud and all kinds of scams and different kinds of financial crimes. Yep. Is that something that concerns you? Why should people take this seriously?
The digital asset industry even from a small scale to a big scale, has found instances of people taking advantage of other people, people behaving fraudulently, people taking too much risk, and people participating in what was in 2021 pretty much an asset bubble. These are human characteristics that are most unwelcome, whether they're actually bad behavior or just cognitive biases that led people down the wrong path. This is what money is about. These are certainly teething pains. I think probably if the regulatory path had been paved more clearly from early on, some of these things might have been avoided. We've had to wait a long time for regulation in the United States to kind of meet us halfway. But the underlying technology is based on just the opposite, on trustlessness, right? On consensus, on non-reliance on decision-making to generate security. So that we think that as the adolescent period or of the industry kind of fades away and we get into more serious conversations about utility, investment properties and investment use cases, and other areas where we think we can improve our lives through the use of blockchain and the tokens that support them, we think that we'll rise into a new world where we'll look back at those things as teething pains.